Okay, we're back with chapter 14, and when we left off on chapter 13, Justin had gone in to see Sergeant Reyes, and Sergeant Reyes was starting to make Justin really wonder if Tyler had told the truth. Lots of questions were running through his mind, and when he left Sergeant Reyes' office, Sergeant Reyes had given him a disc and said, "For your eyes only." Okay, this is confidential. Don't get me into trouble. And when the chapter ended, Justin looked down at the label on the case. There were 2 words written in neat capital letters: Wincott/Max. Now on to chapter 14. The DVDs in Justin's sweatshirt pocket bumped against his leg as he pedaled over to Chu's house. He had gone home to get Max, who trotted along at his side. He promised his mom that they were just going for a short walk. They pulled into Chu's yard to the sound of 1,000 chihuahuas yipping from inside the house. Max's already pointy ears stood up even taller. He looked over at Justin as if to say, "What are you getting me into?" Justin grinned at Max. "Don't worry, Max. They're going to love you." Max sniffed at the lawn and followed his nose toward the front door. They headed inside. "What's up, Jay?" Chu said from the couch. "Hi, Justin," Carmen said with a big grin on her face. She looked happy to see him, but Justin was pretty sure that he was happier to see her. Just looking at her made his stomach do a little dance. "Hey, Max," she said, leaning down to pat the dog. Max wagged his tail and let out a sweet whimper. He was happy to see Carmen, too. "Oh, Chu," said nervously when Max made noise. Chu scooted up onto the back of the couch to put some distance between himself and Max. "Hello, Max." Justin ignored his friend and held out the disc to Carmen. "So, what is this thing?" Carmen asked, reaching for it. "I have no idea, but apparently it's top secret," he said, holding it up. "I'm not supposed to show it to anyone else, but I'm making an exception for you guys." Carmen kept her hand out. "All right," she said, "then hand it over." Justin dropped it onto her palm. She walked over to the television and slid the disc into the DVD player. "Check this out," Chu shouted from behind them. Justin and Carmen spun around to see Chu pointing at Max where he lay on the ground. He was covered from head to toe in squirming, wagging, wiggling, sniffing chihuahuas. They climbed all over him, nudging their noses into his fur. Max held his head up high, trying to remain as dignified as possible. They all burst out laughing. "Look at the little guys," Chu cackled. "They think they can take down a giant war dog." "Show them how it's done, Max," Justin said as Chu bent down and encouraged the tiny dogs to climb Max. Justin and Carmen stood together in front of the television. Chu sat behind them on the couch. "It's my brother and Max's name on it," Justin said as the DVD started up. "It's some kind of military dog training instructions, maybe." "So it's top secret?" Chu asked. "I'm going to tell Al-Qaeda the army feeds our dogs kibbles and bits. It'll be the end of America." Carmen ignored Chu and looked at Justin. "So you haven't watched it yet?" she asked. He shook his head and looked at his 2 friends. "I thought I'd wait to watch it with someone who could make heads or tails of it." "Very punny," Chu said. "Very, very punny of you, Justin." Justin laughed and Max's ears perked up at the sound of his voice. "Justin," Carmen said, studying Max, "there's no big secret to this. Max just has to know you want him, and there's no faking it." She took a step closer to Justin. "Or are you one of those guys who just uses his dog to pick up girls?" She stood so close to him, she had to tilt her head back to look him in the eye. Justin swallowed hard. He hoped Carmen couldn't see the beads of sweat breaking out on his forehead. Squeak! They both jumped at the sound of Chu's voice. He had snuck up right behind them. "You hear that?" Chu asked. Justin couldn't decide if it was mad at Chu for interrupting or grateful. "That's the sound of the 3rd wheel squeaking. People, come on. This is my house." Carmen crossed her arms and glared at him. "Sorry to interrupt your important activities, like hiding in your room and spending the entire day on Instagram." Chu threw his hands up in frustration and headed for the back door. "You guys are making me throw up a little in my mouth. I'm going outside, he said, letting the screen door slam behind him. Justin wasn't sure if Chew was just acting overly dramatic or if he actually felt left out. It wasn't like Chew to walk away from some top secret information. He would have to smooth things over with his friend after he watched the video with Carmen. Justin shrugged and turned back to Carmen, realizing that he was standing closer to her than ever, practically nose to nose. He gulped. Carmen held his gaze for a second. Let's watch it, she finally said. Okay, he replied, his voice a little unsteady. They sat next to each other on the couch. Justin pressed play on the remote, and the black screen suddenly filled with light. The video showed a tiny, fuzzy lump of puppy rolling around in the grass. His fur was downy and pale, and his paws were way too big for his body. Justin recognized his curious brown eyes immediately. They heard a man's voice off camera. Hi, Max, the voice said. Hi, buddy. Hi, little guy. A large hand appeared in the frame, rubbing Max's soft tummy as he rolled around on his back. Justin couldn't help but smile as he looked at Puppy Max. The scene changed, and a slightly larger Max, now in full control of his limbs, raced after a ball. He was little, but fast. He snatched up the ball in his mouth and zoomed back toward the camera. He dropped it at the feet of whoever was filming and looked up into the lens with the dog's version of a smile. His mouth hung open, his pink tongue dangling to the side. The video cut to mid-sized Max, his fur darker. He had finally grown into his giant paws. He ran up a ramp and down the other side, then zigzagged through a slalom set up in the dirt. He leaped over bars set at different heights. He moved smoothly, effortlessly. That explained how Max was able to run through the woods so easily, Justin thought. In the next scene, Max was fully grown, a regal animal with his ears pointed straight up to the sky. His long legs and tapered snout only made him seem more graceful. He sat at attention, watching someone off camera. Good boy, Max. Stay. A dull, throbbing ache radiated through Justin's chest. He knew that voice. It was Kyle's. A shadow moved across the camera, and there he was, Kyle, squatting down in front of Max and grabbing him right behind the ears. Max sniffed at Kyle's face, then began licking his cheeks and nose. Attaboy, Max, Kyle laughed. He squeezed his eyes shut and grimaced a little at all the slobber, but Justin could tell he loved it. Max's tail thumped against the ground. The film cut to Kyle standing near the camera, while Max sat on a dirt road a few feet ahead of him. Max looked at Kyle, and his body relaxed but poised for action. His eyes were full of anticipation as he waited for Kyle's command. The camera rolled, but Kyle said nothing for a few seconds. He was making Max wait. Max, go search, he said finally. Max hopped up and bolted off down the road. He stopped, sniffed, and skittered across the dirt to let Kyle know he had found something. Good job, Max, Kyle called out. Justin had never seen Max actually doing his job, or Kyle for that matter. He knew Max was insanely strong and fast and smart, but Justin now realized that his dog was more than all that. He was special. Max was the best at what he did, and Kyle had been too. Reyes stepped into the frame and clapped Kyle on the back. Nice job, Marine. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Kyle was beaming. Max, come. Max ran back toward Kyle and jumped up on him with his front paws. Justin swallowed hard. There was a hot pressure behind his eyelids. Is that your... Carmen asked. She looked concerned for Justin. Yeah. I can go out back if you want me to. No, it's okay. You can stay. Justin paused. His mouth felt dry. Please stay. Justin focused his attention back on the TV as a new clip began. It looked like it was in the same training grounds as before, which Justin realized was Maitland, where they had picked up Max, and where he had met with Sergeant Reyes. A man in a full-body bite suit ran away from the camera. Max sprinted after him at top speed. His body, a flash of movement. Kyle appeared at the edge of the frame. Max, attack! Kyle yelled. Max leaped on the man's body with ferocity that made Justin suck in his breath. Max knocked the man to the ground and stood on top of him, growling. "Stop, Max," Kyle ordered. Max instantly hopped off the man and sat down by his side, totally still. He waited for Kyle's next command. Next, a soldier in full gear pointed a plastic pistol. Max flew through the air at him, landing with full force against his chest and knocking the man to the ground. Max pinned him down with his full weight, snarling into his face. "Max," Kyle's voice rang out off the camera. "Stop." Max stopped. "Sit." Max sat. "Down." Max lay down. Kyle stepped into the frame. He knelt down by Max and lovingly wrapped his arms around the dogs' necks. Kyle looked right into the camera, gave a double thumbs up, and flashed one of his famous grins. The screen went black. Justin saw himself reflected in the glass of the television. Tears streamed down his face. It was as if the full weight of missing his brother came down on him at once. He missed Kyle so much, it felt like he'd never stop missing him. As if he sensed what Justin was feeling, Max popped up from the rug and leaned against Justin's leg with a sweet, gentle nuzzle. He stretched his nose forward and licked the tears from Justin's cheek. Justin put a hand around Max's neck and scratched him under the chin. They looked at each other while Carmen watched them both. He felt closer to Max than ever, and in a funny way, closer to his brother. He finally understood what Kyle and Max meant to each other. He also understood something else very clearly. Justin felt the lump in his throat go down. He could speak again. "I knew it," Justin said. Carmen gave him a confused look. "Knew what?" "Tyler's a liar." That is the end of the chapter. So stay tuned for chapter 15. See you next week.